Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the experience in various parts of the world has shown that industrialization drives economic growth and development, which improves living standards as evident by the high output and per capita income in industrialized countries. Countries smaller than Nigeria, such as Singapore and South Korea, have an average per capita GDP of about 65,000 and 31,000 respectively, due to the level of industrialization which they have achieved. In Nigeria, the policy dispositions and implementation strategies of successive Nigerian governments on industrialization seek to create more employment opportunities, scale up the production of consumer goods for its teeming population, and generate wealth for the nation. Although these dispositions and strategies form the canal of public sector policies and planning, the rate of industrialization in Nigeria has been slow, as evidenced by the low contributions of manufacturing to GDP. Poor capacity utilization, constrained export of manufactured products within and outside the continent. Its share of world output is significantly below that of India, South Korea, and China. Nigeria has for many years remained in the developing nation cadre as income, economic development, and standard of living largely remains below average. In addition, Nigeria remains one of the least industrialized countries with a low human development index and a per capita GDP of $2,097, ranking 129 and 105 out of 152 respectively. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, from the foregoing, it is evident that manufacturing is pivotal to industrialization. No country in the world has ever industrialized or attained developed nation status without having a thriving manufacturing sector. Without a doubt, manufacturing is the heartbeat of industrialization and the bedrock of inclusive economic growth and development. Consequently, any journey towards industrialization must place strong emphasis on creating an enabling environment for manufacturing. You will agree with me that Nigeria has the potential and wherewithal for industrialization, given its vibrant and entrepreneurial population, as well as its vast array of natural resources. When industrialization is driven by broad-based manufacturing of products for domestic consumption and exports, the internal and external positions of the country will become favorable. Economic growth will trend upwards, tax revenues should increase. Balance of payments will be positive, external reserves will grow, and the value of the currency will be stable. Performance of industrial sector in Nigeria. Nigeria's industrialization process has been greatly challenged by structural and institutional constraints, particularly funding. These factors have over the years cumulatively contributed to its disappointing performance. For instance, in the last decade, average share of manufacturing value added to GDP in countries like China and Malaysia stood at 41% and 38% respectively, compared to 14% in Nigeria. Similarly, our trade indices in the last decade have been relatively very poor. Total exports, for instance, accounted for 16% of GDP as against 70% recorded by Malaysia. In terms of capacity utilization, a major performance indicator which reflects the ability of manufacturing companies to meet rising demand Without increasing costs, Nigeria achieved a rate of 55% compared to 76% and 78% in China and South Korea, respectively. The country's dwindling industrial performance has significant socio-economic implications as poverty and unemployment continues to rise. While there is a pressing need to create more jobs, the high cost of doing business in the face of declining consumer purchasing power puts enormous strain on manufacturers, with many scaling down production and some of them shutting down completely. The development trajectory of China by far outpaced that of Nigeria within the same period, even though Nigeria began on a seemingly better footing. It is therefore important to track back where Nigeria dropped the ball, with a view to repositioning the country to the path of growth, development, and social upliftment. The current status of manufacturing sector. Manufacturing was singled out in the Nigerian Industrial Revolutionary Plan as a driver of industrialization and economic growth. Following the GDP rebasing exercise in 2013, the growth of the sector averaged 18% in 2013 and 2014 and accounted for 10% of real GDP in both years. The onset of the forex crisis in 2015, economic recession in 2016, and the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic presented manufacturers with a difficult set of circumstances, the effect of which many have not yet recovered. They are still recovering, but they are not yet, they haven't yet recovered from the crisis. The situation has recently been compounded by skyrocketing inflation, driven in large part by high energy prices. The contribution of manufacturing to real GDP in Nigeria contrasts with what was obtained in countries like China, which is 27% in 2019, Germany 19%, Japan 21%, and South Africa 14%. To drive industrialization and sustained economic growth in Nigeria, it is important that deliberate policies that are manufacturing specific should be designed to support manufacturing activities and address the perennial challenges of the sector. It is also important to note that the current policies, if fully implemented, are good enough to address most of the challenges we are facing today. What I'm saying here is that the current policies that we have in place, they should be fully implemented. And once they are implemented, we'll be out of our logjam. I'll go now to manufacturing sector challenges. In recent years, manufacturing sector's contribution to GDP has hovered around 9%, which is low and indicates that previous efforts at industrializing Nigeria through manufacturing have not yet yielded the desired results. The suboptimal performance of the sector is due to the existence of binding constraints of some of which include: 1. Acute shortage of forex. The manufacturing sector is currently overwhelmed by a shortage of forex, which makes imports difficult and expensive. Dearth of long-term funds. Manufacturing in Nigeria is constrained by inadequate and high cost of credit. 3. Limited infrastructure. The stock of infrastructure available to support manufacturing in the country is grossly inadequate. 4. Policy inconsistency, implementation, and enforcement. 5. Over-regulation. Multiple regulations of the industry by different government agencies resulting in multiplicity of charges also constitute a major challenge. 5. Multiple and high tax rates for the industries. The manufacturing sector is beset with over 30 statutory taxes, levies, fees, etc., charged at multiple tiers of governments. And these are issues that which I think most of you have actually been crying about. Then the last, not the least, is insecurity. Industries continue to be confronted by insecurity across the country, manifesting in the form of kidnapping, banditry, harassment, farmers' crisis, just to mention a few. In consideration of the aforementioned challenges, there is an urgent need for a shift in policy approach and strategy to reposition the manufacturing sector for growth over the next 10 years. It is imperative that the familiar challenges limiting the pace of industrialization are frontally addressed while setting a clear-cut agenda for the next 10 years. Agenda for the next 10 years. Let me talk about that. Industrialization facilitates the global competitiveness of a nation in the production of processed and manufactured goods by linking industrial activities with primary sector, domestic and foreign trade, and service activities. To achieve industrialization goals, it is necessary for a nation to formulate plans and policies that will enhance and sustain industrial development. Sustainable industrial development involves establishment of conducive environment to encourage investment and ensure efficient usage of resources to increase productivity and growth of the nation. Nigeria needs to henceforth intensify efforts at promoting industrialization with specific focus on attainment of the following targets in the next 10 years. 15% manufacturing sector growth, 20% manufacturing contributions to GDP, 15% growth in exports of manufactured products, 10% increase in share of manufacturing to total export merchandise, stronger inter-industry linkages between SMEs and large corporations, improved manufacturing contributions to government tax revenue, and 20% increase in manufacturing employment. Implementation roadmap. To industrialize the nation and achieve the target listed above, there are measures that need to be in place, some of which are: 1, investment in infrastructure. Adequate infrastructure is the bedrock of industrialization. Given the paucity of funds, government at all levels need to prioritize the infrastructure expenditure to ensure that it provides optimal multiplier effects in the real sector of the economy. Direct investment by government in infrastructure needs to be complemented with a well-designed PPPs, which is public-private partnership. The execution of Presidential Order number 007, which enables companies to invest in road infrastructure using their future tax payments, has been a very, very remarkable success in Nigeria. Number 2, creation of business enabling policy framework. Investment-friendly policies need to be put in place, and the policy evaluation review process should be institutionalized to provide a level of predictability. Because if things are not, if you cannot predict anything, you cannot really risk your capital. Then provision of accessible financing schemes. To position the nation on the path of industrialization, an accessible window for a long-term funds need to be created for manufacturers at a single-digit interest rate and to be accessible by all. Number 4, development of institutional and regulatory framework. Cumbersome registration and approval processes need to be reviewed. Multiplicity of taxes, fees, and charges need to be streamlined. Dispute resolution procedures should be established and adhered to. Regulatory agencies can be upright with firms while carrying out their duties without necessarily being combative and adversarial. Development of core industries. That's number 5. Development of core industries. It is imperative that we invest and resuscitate the primary input suppliers like our refineries, textiles, agro-processing, iron and steel complexes, petrochemicals, and other gas-based industries, and formulate policies to encourage forward and backward linkages to curtail imports and demand for foreign exchange. Unless you curtail the imports, the demand of foreign exchange will continue to rise. Number 6, macroeconomic stability. Policies aimed at stabilizing exchange, interest, inflation, and unemployment rates should be prioritized. Number 7 is facilitation of sectoral linkages, which is a promotion of linkages with other sectors of the economy like agriculture, mining, ICT, etc. will boost industrialization. The ICT sector will bring about efficiency improvements through the digitalization and automation of manufacturing process. Security. Crime and insecurity continues to be a source of concern for all investors. We do recognize the recent successes recorded by our security agencies and hope this will be sustained. The current government has actually invested a lot on security, so the security agencies must deliver.